this video I want to break down question 5 of the Leaving Cert paper. So it's one of the harmony questions, one of the 3 harmony questions along with questions 4 and 6, and you have to do one of them. As I said in a previous video, the harmony question is worth a lot more than the melody question. It's worth 60 marks, whereas the melody is only worth 40. So this is a really important one to kind of get to grips with. Okay, so question 5 I found it a little bit more difficult than question 4. It's just a personal thing, I think it's a little bit tougher. Some people find it easier, but we're going to go through it anyway and maybe have a few goes at doing some question 4s and some question 5s of past papers and see what you think is easier for yourself. So, with question 5, here's what you're given. You're given the entire first 4 bars, like this. You're given chords for 2 of those, and you have to add in the chords for the next 2, and then you're given the melody for the rest of it. Okay, so you're given the entire melody. You've also got the bass line for the first 4 bars, and you got the chords for the first 2. What you need to do is add in chords for the rest of it and add in a bass line for the rest. So how do we do that? Okay, so usually the first thing you're going to want to do is add in the chords. So when you get your paper, you're going to have a lot of chord boxes drawn in. If I remember correctly, on this one it has chords changing every 2 beats. So, every 3 quaver beats, 6/8 time. But you've got 2 chords in each bar. So it'll be like this, you'll get little chord boxes all along through it. You've got to fill those in with the appropriate chord each time. I think the only one where it's got 1 chord per bar is bar 13, this one. And you've got to fill in your chords. So what you need to do in order to fill in your chords is you need to look at the melody. You're going to be given the melody, so that's what you need to look at. Well, actually in the first 2 bars, in this particular case, it's easier to look at the bass line. So your bass line here is made up of the notes F, C, F, and since we're in the key of F minor, as you can see from our 4 flats and our F minor chord, that kind of presupposes it's going to be an F minor chord, chord 1. Okay. Here you've got D flat rather, D flat, A flat, and D flat, which kind of supposes it's going to be a D flat chord. Okay, so that's how you do it. You kind of work out your chords from the melody that you're given, or the bass line. When you get down to these ones, like bars 5 and 6, where all you've got is a melody, that's all you really have to go on. You've got no bass line to help you out here. So what you need to do is look at the melody notes and decide what chords do they outline. So for example, in bar 5, in the first half of the bar, we've got the note F and we've got the note A flat. So of the chords that we've got in the key of F minor, we need to think which chords in the key of F minor could possibly have the notes F or A flat in there. When you start this question, you'll have a little chord box written out where you've got the notes of the scale written out. So it's like F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D flat, and I can't remember whether it gives you a harmonic minor scale. I think it is. It gives you an E note. And then you fill in the notes above that for the chords. So you'll have, above here you'll have A flat, B flat, commas, C, D flat, E, F, and G. Then you do the rest of your notes of the chord, solder those in a new color. You have C, you've got D flat, you got E, you got F, G, A flat, and B flat. So those are the notes of each of our chords. I'm just going to write in the names of the chords underneath. So chord 1, this is a minor key, so I'm going to do it as just lowercase numerals. So we've got chord 1, we've got a diminished chord, that's chord 2, G flat diminished, G diminished rather. So I'll just put that there for a moment. We've got an A flat chord, that's chord 3, that's A flat augmented. That's chord 3. We've got a B flat, D flat, and F. So that's a B flat minor chord as chord 4. We've got a C, E, and G, so we've got a major chord as chord 5. We've got a D flat, F, and A flat, so we've got a chord 6 as a major chord. And we've got E, E, G, and B flat, so that's a diminished chord as well. So let's go 7. Okay, so these are our various different chords that we can possibly use. Now, there's certain rules about which chords you can and can't use. So I'm just going to talk, since this is a minor key melody, I'm going to, minor key question rather, I'm going to talk about which ones you can and can't use in the minor key just for the moment, and I will come back to the major key ones in a little while. So in a minor key, you can't use chord 2, because diminished chords, they're just more difficult to work with, so we're not going to use that. You can't use chord 3, because again, augmented chords are just more difficult to work with. And you can't use chord 6. Okay, well, actually it's got chord 6 up there, but generally they say that you can't use chord 6. So for the moment, I would say you can use chord 6, but maybe treat it with caution. And you can't use chord 7. Okay, so the ones you are allowed to use in a minor key are chords 1, chord 4, chord 5, and you can use chord 6, just treat it with caution. Okay, so of the notes that we can use at the beginning of bar 5, we can use any of the notes any chord that has the notes F or A flat in there. So which chords have F and A flat? Well, we've got chord 1 here, and we've also got chord 6. So we could use either of the two of those. And I'm going to, like I said, chord 1 is a much stronger chord than chord 6, so I'm going to use an F minor chord here. I'm going to use chord 1. Okay, let's keep going with that. Let's see what we can do in the next bar. So the next bar has the notes B flat, A flat, and G. But that A flat is just a passing note. So the only one we really need to be concerned, ones we really need to be concerned about are B flat and G. So a good chord to have in there will be one that has B flat and G in there. So let's see. Well, we've got nothing. We've got no chord that has a B flat and G. One that we could possibly have is chord 5, 7. Chord 5 with a 7th added would be chord 5 with a B flat added in there. So we could do C7 in here. We could also just do chord 4. We could do a B flat. So maybe I think for the moment I'm just going to do a B flat chord in there. We don't have to treat every single note, but we could do chord 5, 7 there. So let's have a look at, let's change my color back. Let's have a look at what we've got in the next bar. So for the first half of the bar, on our strong beats, we've got a C, and we've also got a G. So we could do chord 5, 7 here. We've got C, or chord 5 rather. We've got C and G, and actually our passing note is a B flat. So that really sums up chord 5. So I'm definitely going to have a C in there for that one. Then here we've got an A flat and an F, which again means we could have chord 6, or we could have chord 1. And once again, I'm going to use chord 1. I could use chord 6 there, but I'm going to use chord 1. Generally, the stronger chords are chords 1, 4, and 5. Chord 6 can be used, but 1, 4, and 5 are stronger. So that's essentially the process that we follow when we're working out what chords we can use for this. You're given a chord box, you have to decide in the space of that chord box which notes fall on the strong beats. Then you need to look back to your little chord thing, your chord chart that you will fill in at the beginning, and decide which chords out of the ones you're allowed to use could possibly have those notes in it. And it's usually pretty straightforward. You get some unusual ones where you've got an accented passing note, for example, where you've got a note that's not in the chord that falls on the strong beat, but the rest of them, the rest of the notes in that particular section in the duration of that chord uh, are all based from this particular chord. You will get that, but it's very rare, and I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's highly likely you won't get something like that anyway. So that's the essential idea of how you figure out which chords you can and can't use. And that's half the battle really. When you're doing this question, the two things you really need to think about are what chords can I use, and what chords will I use, and what should my bass line be. And if you can get the chords down, that's half the battle already. That's excellent. Okay, so there are a couple of extra little rules or little guidelines that I'm going to give you for when you're working out your chords. The first one I'm going to say is you never use the same chord in two consecutive boxes. So I'm gonna put that as my number one. Don't use uh, don't use same chord twice in a row in a row. So for example, like I said here in this bar, I used B flat at this point here, but I could have used C. I could have used C7. Generally, you would want to avoid that because if I was going to have a C7 here, then that would mean I have C7 twice in a row. I've used the same chord twice in a row, and that's something you definitely can't do. So one guideline, one rule is never use the same chord twice in a row. Another guideline I would say is number two. Actually, let's use a normal two there. Number two, you can use inversions, that's slash chords, but I would use them sparingly. So use inversions sparingly. Sparingly. Okay, I would recommend using inversions. I'd recommend using at least one or two in your entire piece. Probably, yeah, exactly about that, one or two. The reason for that is you want to show that you can use them, you know an appropriate place to use them. So if you know how to use inversions, use them. Just show you know an appropriate place that you can use them. But don't overuse them because they're not as strong as root position chords. Root position chords are just these normal ones like F minor and C. Inversion chords are the ones with slash. So for example, B flat slash F or F slash C, something like that. You can use inversions, just use them sparingly. In terms of the places you can use them, if you look at places like this, you can see from their bass line here in the opening four bars that you're given, they've got one point where the bass line goes B flat, G, B flat. Now if you were to go through your chord box, the only chord that outlines that has the notes B flat and G in there, well actually there are two, there's chord 7, but there's also chord 2. And chord 2 is one of the ones we can't use. Well, that we said we can't use. But we can use chord 2 if it's used in an inversion, if it's used in first inversion, which means that instead of just a straight up G, G diminished, D minor, G diminished chord, if we use it as a chord 2 slash chord, so if it's G diminished slash B flat, and what that means is that we've got a B flat in the bass, because if you remember from a previous video on question 4, the note after the slash, B flat in this case, becomes in the bass. So when we've got B flat in the bass, but we're also outlining a G, we've got a G note and then another B flat. We want to the only chord we can really use here is G diminished, and we can use diminished chords as long as they're in first inversion, as long as they're slash another note, slash the third of the chord. So those are the kind of places that you will use inversions. You'll find them throughout your piece, and you'll find opportunities to use them throughout your 16 bars. I'm going to do a whole video on using inversions at at a later date, but for the moment, just try and use them sparingly, but do use them just to show that you can, if you're able to. Also, uh, if possible, use seventh chords sparingly. So use seventh chords, and again sparingly. The exact same thinking behind it. You want to use them, but you don't want to overuse them. You don't want to create situations where you could go wrong. You want to have them in there to show that you can use them, but you don't want to accidentally use them in a place that you shouldn't be using them. Which the more you use them, the more likely that is to happen. So I would use a 7 chord just maybe once or twice in the entire thing, at an appropriate time. I think if you look at this particular piece, in the very last bar, you've got 2 chords. And you know that the very last one is going to be chord 1, because we always end on chord 1, just like in a melody question. So the last one's going to be an F minor. And the chord I'll just get a different color so you can see that a bit better. You know that's going to be F minor. But the chord right before it, if you look at it closely, it's got B flat, G, and C as a note that it outlines. And if we look at a chord that has those, B flat, G, and C, B flat, G, and C. That's chord 5 with a 7th in it. So that would be a really good place to use a C7, especially since it's a perfect cadence right at the end of the piece. Perfect cadence often works really well with chord 5, 7, replacing chord 5. So that's the general guidelines for when you're using your chords. Like I said, there are certain chords you can and can't use. In a minor key, you can't use chords 2, 3, or 7. You can use chord 2 as long as it's in first inversion. Other than that, you can't use any of those. In a major key, which we will do a whole video on, but just for the moment, so you know, in a major key, you can't use chords 3, 7, or chord 6B. So that means chord 6 in first inversion. So you can't in major key you can't use 3. These are the ones you cannot use in a major key. You can't use 3, 7, or chord 6B, chord 6 in first inversion. Okay, but you can use any of the other chords in a major key. The other thing that you should really know is that certain chords are a bit stronger than others. Chord 1, if you can use chord 1, use it. As long as it's not following another chord 1 or something like that, you can use chord 1. That's always the strongest chord. Chords 4 and 5 are the next strongest. If an opportunity is there to use chords 4 or 5, and that goes in a major or a minor key, use them. They're, again, really strong chords. Chord 6 is also, it's an allowed chord. It's not as strong as chords 1, 4, or 5, but do use it. Use it to create a little bit of color. Use it once or twice to add a little bit of character to your piece. I've already told you about which chords you can't use. One particular progression you can't use, so if you're particularly in a major key, you can't use, because you can't use chord 2 anyway in a minor key, but if you're in a major key, do not use, I'm going to get a big mark for this one, do not go from chord 2 to chord 1. It's not allowed. So that's one particular progression you can't use. So that's the main things. I think that covers everything you need to know about the chords. Next thing we need to think about is the actual bass line. So the bass line is, well, essentially you need to follow what you've already been given. In this particular case, if you look at what you've been given, the entire thing is quaver movement. So literally everything they've given you is quavers. So that's something you're going to want to continue. When you're doing your own bass line, you're going to want to have all quaver movement, the entire thing, except for maybe the last note because you want to end a long one. Though, get rid of that. We have anacrusis. We don't need that little quaver rest. And in terms of which quavers you're going to use, you just need to look at the style they've given you. So in this particular one that we've got here, the style is that quaver movement completely outlines the chords. Got here, this is actually incorrect. I think I wrote it in wrong. This should be F, C, F. Here. So that's F, C, F. So that's root 5th root of the chord. F, C, F is root 5th root of chord 1. Next is chord C, and we've got C, G, C. Again, it goes root, 5th root, all going up the way. Then, I'm going to skip this one and come back to it. B flat minor, it goes B flat, F, B flat. Again, root, 5th root of the chord. If you look at it, everything they've got is root, 5th root of whatever chord they've given you up here. Even in these particular ones, this one, where it goes down and back up, it still goes root, 5th root of an F minor. It's just instead of having that low F and going all the way up, it has a high F, so it goes down and back up again. Everything has the root of the chord, the 5th of the chord, and then another root of the chord. The only time that changes is on inversions. So when they've got your inversion here of chord 2, in first inversion, it goes the 3rd of the chord, which is B flat, then the root of the chord, then 3rd. So your bass line is going to be the exact same. For example, when you come to this F minor chord down here, your notes are going to be root, 5th root of an F minor chord. So it's going to be F, C, F, and we want to make sure that we're in line with the melody above us. Here we've got that's what's in C7. Here we've got a B flat chord, so that's going to be B flat, F, B flat, because that's the root, 5th root of that chord. So it's going to be B flat, F, B flat, something like that. We could also, if we wanted, choose to go the other way with it. We could do, like a high B flat. We could go B flat, F, B flat, like they've got at this point. Or if we wanted to be a little bit creative, we wouldn't want to overdo this, but we could do the opposite of what they've done where they went down and back up. We could do B flat, F, B flat, like that. So as long as you follow this basic principle, you're fine. On our C7 chord, we do the same thing. We could go C, G, C. That's what we on the line. On our F minor chord, we go F, C, F, and it's just that pattern the entire way. We just want to completely follow what they've given us. If we do have any inversions, we're going to do this again, where we go third, root third. And that's all we really need to do. We've got our chords, we've got our bass line. So what I'm going to do is I'll scroll down and I'm just going to quickly show you one that I've already done. I've actually got a G minor there, that should be G diminished. But this is one I've already done, and I've followed that exact principle I was telling you about. If you look at the chord progressions I've got a lot of chord ones in there, like I said. The other chords that I've really used are chords 4 and 5. So 4, 5, nearly everything is either chord 1, 4, or 5, as you can see. So practically every chord I've got is chord 1, 4, or 5, right up to the end. Those are the main ones. I've got a seventh chord here. Like I said, we should have at least one seventh, and that's the only one I use. I've used chord 6. I've used it at the beginning, one of the chords they've outlined, and I've also used it twice more, but I've not done it anywhere near as much as chords 1, 4, or 5. I've also got one, again, that should be G diminished. I've got a chord 2 in first inversion. I've used it just once, and they've actually used it once up here in the 4 bars they've given. So you can see I've done all these things. I've got my 7th, I've got my first inversion of chord 2, I've got my chord 6, and I've predominantly used chords 1, 4, and 5. What were the other uses? Yeah, I didn't use the same chord twice in a row at any points, as you can see. And in terms of my bass line, it's entirely quaver movement, just like I said. And if you look at it, it's all this exact same pattern that they've used, that they've given me. On the chord of F minor, I've got F, C, F. On B flat minor, I have got B flat, F, B flat. On C, I've got C, G, C. On F minor, I've done what they've done up here. I've gone F down to a C and back up. I've got B flat, F, B flat. So I've done that the entire way. The only time I've really changed it is here on the G diminished chord. I've done third, root third, B flat, G, B flat. And that's about it really. You're given the melody, so you don't need to worry about that. You just need to make sure that you've got your bass line in correctly, that you've used good chord progressions. One thing you really need to be aware of is your chords at cadence points as well. That's something I should have pointed out there. At cadence points, you want to have a recognized cadence. So for example, at the end of bar 4 here, I've got an imperfect cadence because we're going to chord 5. Then here, at the end of bar 8, I've got a perfect cadence going from chord 5 to chord 1. Then another imperfect cadence going from B flat minor to C, and then a perfect cadence using chord 5-7 instead of chord 5. So it's very important to get strong chords in there at your cadence points, mainly perfect and imperfect cadences. You can use interrupted cadences. You could use that maybe once. Obviously don't use it at the end. You have to end with a perfect cadence. So don't use anything other than a perfect cadence at the end there. And I think that's the main point. So I'm just going to quickly switch over to another program to play that for you. Give me 2 seconds.